What's up, YouTube? It's me, the brace face Malcolm X, coming back again with another video, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the Oculus Quest 2 by Facebook. Now with this particular device, when you first initially open the box, what you're going to get is you're going to get one headset, you're going to get two controllers, one for the right hand side, one for the left hand side, and you're also going to get an instruction manual, which I lost, a USB-C cable, which I lost, and a box and a power box that you use for charging. Also, I got two of these. I don't remember the file sizes. I think this one's like 164, maybe this one's like 200 something gigabytes, you know? So that's basically the difference between them. So I've seen a lot of different reviews on these, but I think mine is a unique perspective just in the fact that up until I actually got this device, I never actually played VR before. So this particular review would actually give you the thoughts of just someone who's just never played it, and I'm not like some type of VR master race elitist or anything. I'm just a normal dude. Now, before we get to the pros, I'm going to first get to the cons. The cons of this are, first is the battery life. The battery life for this device only lasts about 3 hours. Now, I don't use the traditional charger they gave me. I do use this much larger charger. It's way longer so that I can actually play the game while it's charging, and I use a Samsung fast charger, which works pretty well. But the only thing that I would say is, if you're worried about, your device breaking or the charger that you have possibly breaking your device, I would just use the standard charger. But for me, in my instance, I just went ahead and just, I use the other chargers and it worked fine for me. I don't necessarily recommend that you do that because it may not work fine for you, or maybe it will break the device at some point. It just hasn't done it yet. But yeah, the battery life on this is not very good, especially if you're having an intense play session and you have the settings up brighter, just because maybe you're someone like me who has not the best vision in the world, as you can see by these glasses. But yeah, the battery life is definitely a con. You'll be in the middle of a play session and then you'll just hear it time out, or you'll just see that the battery's almost dead. Now you can offset that by using a really long cable to play the game, but it is somewhat of an inconvenience, as in a lot of games you're going to be turning around in the 360 if they don't necessarily have that snapping motion with the stick where you can move, or in some cases, like if you're like me, you have small children, they may run around and actually pull the cord out, which could damage the cord and also damage the device. Now fortunately, very fortunately, so far they have yet to actually damage the device, but they have broken a couple of these cords, but I have more. And also, the device is under warranty for 1 year, so hopefully if it does get broken, it's still under that Oculus warranty, and whatever the distributor that you buy the device from, you can possibly look into maybe getting a longer warranty if you want to pay a little bit extra.
We've been trying to contact you regarding your car's extended warranty.
Now, con number 2, I would say, is the apps. Because I guess, some people say I say because this particular device is relatively new. The whole Oculus platform, it has been going on for a while, but VR in itself, compared to other technologies, at least in the terms of VR gaming at the extent that it is now, is very new. So what you're going to find is that a lot of the apps are not optimized. In fact, I would say most of the apps, even the ones that I paid for, they feel like playing a beta, or they feel like playing just like, the initial beta testing for a game. A lot of the games don't really seem finished, and a lot of them don't really have graphics, at least not the ones you're going to get in a standalone device like this without connecting it to a PC. They don't really have graphics that'll really wow you. Now, there is a downside to that, which is just like, oh, there's not really crazy graphics, but there's a good side. Because the graphics aren't really the super main priority, and it doesn't really have like super 4K extraordinary graphics, that means the file sizes for the games are pretty small. Now I believe this device, this particular one that I have, because I have both. I have the 200 something gigabyte one, and then I have the 64 gigabyte one. And honestly, even though, or I think it's 64 gigabytes, I can't really remember, but even though it doesn't have a lot of memory, the file sizes for most of the games are relatively small. I think the largest file size I have for a game is 10 gigabytes, which is the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners game. But then for the majority of the games, it's really not that much. I mean, I've seen games as small as, you know, 1 gigabyte or a couple megabytes, and they download pretty fast, just like the games would download on your phone. Because they're essentially just very similar to phone games. And I honestly, I don't even think Saints and Sinners is 10 gigabytes. I think it's maybe less than that. I'd have to check, but it's not a lot. So if you're pretty apprehensive about the fact that it doesn't have a lot of memory, just understand that the games that you'll be getting, especially on the standalone device, the ones that just download straight from the Oculus store on to the device, at this moment, they do not take up a lot of space. Now, in regards to the space, I think that that's con number 3 is the space. This the Oculus Quest 2 doesn't have any type of SD slots. It doesn't have any type of USB slots. Nothing that you can actually add external memory into the device, with the exception of maybe hooking it up to the computer and just using your hard drive as the primary source of the memory, and then possibly doing some type of wireless thing. But most people don't have the technical savvy to do that. I know particularly I don't, and I have noticed, I've had this thing for a couple months. I think I've had it for about 3 months. The file sizes for the new games and the new experiences, just like in any other platform or any other gaming device, the file sizes get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I do have a sneaky suspicion that at some point the 64 gigabytes or however much is on here, because I don't necessarily remember, may not be adequate enough to actually play the games that you want to play. So that's another con. Also, another con is you're gonna have to get used to having this thing on your head. Now, originally when I started using it, it wasn't too much of a big problem for me, but I did find after a while, you know, I was slouching over if I was sitting down, or I could feel the weight on it, and I started feeling my neck get pretty stiff. Now, that is a con if you think about, you know, wearing this thing long term. And also this strap that the default strap that comes with it isn't a very good strap. Now, they do sell actually the Elite strap that you could buy for more money, but like I said, you've already invested so much money into this, you might be a little bit apprehensive to put more just for an Elite strap, just for it to be more comfortable. It may be worth it for you, but there are a plethora, because I watched other videos, so there are a plethora of third-party straps that you could buy that offer a lot more support or a lot more comfortable, and they're pretty cheap. You can get them off Amazon. There's tons of reviews about those other straps if you want to just go on YouTube or just anywhere else and look up reviews for a comparable strap without paying, you know, whatever the price is for that Elite strap. I know I saw it at Walmart. That's where I bought this device. I saw the Elite strap and I took one look and I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm paying that for a strap. And then when it comes to comfortability, I would say that for me, as someone who wears glasses, they do have the glasses separator so that your glasses aren't touching the actual lenses. But the thing that I would say about that is, even with the glasses separator, it still somewhat feels uncomfortable when kind of the device is smushing in on my face, causing my glasses to kind of bury into the side of my face. So maybe that's just the issue I'm having. Maybe my head is just too big for it. I don't know. But also, I found that during a long play session, maybe it's just my eyesight, but even though I've adjusted the lenses, which you can adjust to kind of fit, you know, how far apart your eyes are, and you can adjust the strap to make everything less blurry. I find even with that, after a long play session, sometimes I do get headaches, and I do have to take a couple of hours or maybe a few days of not playing the VR just to suffice for that. But I did find that as long as what I'm doing doesn't require a lot of reading, I could take my glasses off completely and play the game and not feel those headaches and not feel so much eye strain just by using my natural eyes instead of using my glasses with this, and it works pretty much fine. That's how I play Beat Saber, that's how I play Population 1 a lot of the times. But if I'm on there browsing, or I'm doing a game or something that requires me to be a lot more focused, or maybe have a lot more, or pay attention to a lot more detail, like when I play Saints and Sinners, because when you find things on the ground, you have to actually read them and look at them and inspect them to actually play the game, then I do have to wear my glasses, and that's when I find that I do get the most ocular strain. So yeah, the Oculus causes some ocular strain, so I would say that's another con. Now, with all the cons out the way, here are the pros. If you have never played a VR device before, especially for me, I think this is definitely a pro, because the first pro is it does not require, you don't know anything about technology, you don't know anything about VR, you don't know really much of anything about video games. You can pretty much pick this up, and as long as you know how to point and click and you know how to use a cell phone, then you can pretty much navigate around this device. Another pro is, even though the apps aren't optimized, even though there's a lot of things that you can't do on the apps, like one of the things that I found that the apps weren't adequately optimized was adding friends. I try to play with my fiance, that's why I bought the second one, or my little brothers, and when they're over here, I can't really play with them because there are certain games on there that no matter how hard you try to add the other person, it just doesn't work. It hasn't been optimized for the Oculus well enough for you to be able to add the other person. Also, I found that a lot of the times, with the games, sometimes it does, crash. There are a lot of glitches and things like that. But even despite that, even despite the fact that there's glitches, even despite the fact that a lot of it's not optimized, even despite the fact that for some reason, I don't know why, they want you to buy extra copies of this game, of the games, for you to play them on different devices. Like, you can do game sharing, but out of like the 5 or 6 games I've actually paid for, only about 2 or 3 of them, or I've actually paid for more than 5 or 6 games, but only about a couple of them I can actually game share. Like Population 1, I cannot game share it currently. I don't know if they're going to do an update or patch where you are allowed to game share it, and by game sharing means I can share the same purchase of that game on multiple devices so that I can play them with someone else inside my own home. But if you have multiple devices, if you already paid a couple $100 for this one, a couple $100 for that one, and then they want you to actually pay even more for another copy of that same game that you've already purchased, just for you to be able to play it with friends in your house or your family, or I don't really have friends, or your family, so that could be a con too. And then, sorry, I'll keep bringing up so much cons. Another con is you have to have a Facebook in order to use this device. So that is a big con for some people, because currently Facebook is having a lot of issues or a lot of controversies when it comes to cybersecurity and also privacy. So when you're forcing someone to actually get on the Facebook platform, when you consider that they sell a lot of your data to advertisers, a lot of people don't feel comfortable with that. So that's definitely one of the things you can consider before getting this, because you have to understand that this is a lot of data that you're giving them. You're basically giving them a 360 view of everything in your home. You're giving them free reign to listen to your conversations while the device is on. You're also giving them, like, I study computer science, and there's a ton of practical applications when it comes to advertisements that you could definitely get out of this thing with the data that you get from just people using it. Like, the keywords that people say while they're speaking. Someone could say broken television, and all of a sudden they're getting ads for broken TVs. Someone could see through the device what type of dimensions they have in your home. They can start advertising furniture or something for it, or someone can see the type of games that you like, or someone can see the type of content that you watch, and all of a sudden you're getting all these advertisements. That's what Facebook is. It's a data collecting, huge advertising network. That's how they make their money. That's what they do, advertising. So if that's not something that you're willing to do, if you're not willing to sell your privacy for entertainment, then I wouldn't recommend do it. But for me, it's not a big deal. I've had Facebook since I was like a freshman in high school, so it's not that big of a deal for me. I basically hit puberty on Facebook, so Facebook already knows everything about me. That ship's done sailed. If Mark Zuckerberg wanted to see my PP, he could if he wanted to, because it's on his server somewhere. I'm not saying he'd want to see it, because dick pics are like you know, fish in the ocean. There's a million of them out there. I'm not sure why he'd be worried about mine, but if he wanted it, he's got it. So for me, that ship's done sailed. They can advertise to me whatever they want. Me and Facebook got an intimate relationship. We have more of an intimate relationship than me and some of the people around me, because shit, out of all the people I know, I'd say maybe 2% of them have seen my PP, if that. But Facebook has. So it is what it is, whatever. But I would say, but sorry about the cons. I'm about to get back to the pros. But I would say the biggest pro when it comes to using this device, one is the convenience of it. Like, it doesn't require any additional hardware. If you know how to use a cell phone, you can pretty much figure out how to use this. And two, like I said, for someone who doesn't play VR and has never experienced anything like that, the only way I can describe it is kind of the same way that I felt the first time I played a Nintendo 64. And I remember getting that when I was a child, or the same way that I felt when I first played the Xbox 360. I remember when I first got the N64, there were two games that it came with, or that my mom got for me. One was Mario 64, and seeing that, because before that, you have to understand the gaming system I had before that was a Dreamcast. So I went from the Dreamcast straight to the 64. I skipped the PS1, I skipped all of that. So seeing that big jump in graphics and big jump in technology, it really blew me away. I remember first playing Mario 64 and seeing Mario in 3D was like something like completely amazing for me. And then there was another game, Jet Force Gemini, that I played, which this is a very underrated game. I don't know why more people who actually use the 64 didn't use it, and it's one of my fondest memories. I think I remember that time that I actually first played a Nintendo 64 and I first received one. I'll remember that moment until I die. And then another video game moment that I'll remember until I die was when I got the Xbox 360. Now, my dad got me the Xbox 360, and the game that he got me with it, which he only got two games. I think I got like an NBA Live game or some basketball game. I don't remember if it was 2K or NBA Live. It was whatever game that I had at that time, but it was kind of older, because I didn't get it I didn't get that 360 in 2006. But the other game that he got, which was probably my favorite game of all time, and to this day, even though there's plenty of other games that are better than this game now out, but at the time it was probably the best game I have ever played in my life, and that is hands down Halo 3. I will never forget that moment of putting in Halo 3 on the first mission, Sierra 117 or whatever it was, when you first go through that kind of grassy point and you're traveling there with your squad, and then you look up and then you see, your enemies coming down from whatever that purple thing is. I can't remember what it's called, but I'll never forget that. It was just one of those moments where, you went from the 64-bit Nintendo 64 to the Xbox 360, which had basically 360-bit graphics, 360 polygons, and it was just something incredible. And even though this device doesn't have crazy blow-away graphics, what it does have is it just has a crazy good interface, and it works the way you expect VR was supposed to. Now, when I was growing up, I remember playing a couple little fake little VRs where you shake this or you shake that, or maybe you move your head and something can move on the screen, and it was in like 8 bits or 16 bits or something. It wasn't true VR, but this was the first time I ever played VR, and it wasn't like it blew me away because it did something like, oh, super amazing, but it actually played how I thought VR was supposed to play. When you're playing Beat Saber and you're actually moving your arms and the hand tracking is tracking the lightsabers and you're chopping things up. When you're playing Saints and Sinners, The Walking Dead, and you stick your hand in a zombie, and even though it's at low resolution and the graphics aren't great, when you stick your hand in a zombie and it seems like it has some weight to it and you pull it back, it's literally scary and kind of fucking disgusting. If I'm being honest, it's really kind of disgusting. Or when you're playing Population 1 and you're just running around killing people and having a good time, and you're climbing things and you're jumping off of things, it gives you this experience that I think that even some of the best AAA games that aren't VR, you can't get that experience from. It's even though it's not as immersive because it doesn't have those graphics, it isn't as realistic, it is more immersive just because of the platform and the utilization of all the tools that the VR have, and it really makes you feel like you're there. At least it's the closest thing that I've ever felt to actually being in a video game. And I remember when I was younger, when I first got my first gaming system, which was just the classic Nintendo Genesis, I used to play I used to play, what was that boxing game? Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And I would always wonder, like, what would it be like to actually be in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out and get to punch Mike Tyson in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Now, the first game I actually played on this VR, the very first game I downloaded and played was the Creed demo, and it gave you that experience. And I was blown away at the fact that it actually worked like it was supposed to. Now, like a lot of the other people who really haven't gotten into VR, I thought the VR was something that was very massively expensive. I thought I'd have to have a really strong gaming PC. I thought I'd have to invest a whole lot of money into putting sensors all over my house and things like that in order to adequately use the software. And 3 years ago, or at least maybe 3.5 years ago, back in 2017, when VR first really started to come onto the scene, that may have been the case. But now you can just literally go to Walmart, and for less than half the price, a third of the price, maybe a fourth of the price of an iPhone, you can get you a great experience that's definitely worth the money. And I would say that is by far the biggest pro, is the fact that the experience is something that is great. It's something that's great, it's something that's fun, it's something that you'll want to share with people, and it's something that the first time that you do it, you probably won't forget it for the rest of your life. Or, you know, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe you're not into video games. Maybe it's not as cool as you, but it was cool to me. And that's why I'll say that even with all the flaws, even with all the privacy issues, even with the fact that, you know, if you had your kids play on this, since you have to log into your Facebook, they can log into it and probably see your messages from, you know, 2007 when you were sending your dick pics to your crush, whatever. I don't know. But even with all that, I'm saying is delete your messages, clear your internet history, you'll be fine. But even with all that, it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it. It's a cool device. And that's really all I have to say about that. Peace.